All right, and welcome to your first geometry video. Before you watch this video, you want to make sure that you have your vocab for chapter 1.1 done, and I have linked the answer key to that in our assignment calendar. I don't always do that, but for this week, the first video, I've done that so that way you can check to see if you have similar answers. It's a good thing when you're going through these videos to make sure you pause and write down any notes, and then you can rewind. But for this video in particular, you want to be able to flip back to the last 2 pages to look at your vocab if you get stuck. So let's go ahead and get started. We just have 1 page and then a quick summary and a question. So example 1, using the diagram to the right, answer the following. A, name the intersection of Y, the line YZ and line M. So if we look at our picture here, the line YZ, so if we look from this point to this point, and we have line M, which I'll change my color here quick, right here. Okay, now if we look at this line, if I go back, we have some dotted lines right here. What the dotted lines tell us are that is behind the plane R. So it's kind of like if you were to take a piece of paper and you stick a pencil through it, it's like you can see the pencil on the back side of the paper. And then if you notice down here by the W, it goes back to a solid line. And that's because you can see that line again, or you could see the pencil. So name the intersection of the line YZ and line M. So where these two cross is at the point Z. Now I like to write Z with a line through it so that way it doesn't look like a sloppy 2. You could put the point Z. It doesn't really matter. B, add a point to make a set of 3 collinear points and then name them. So if we go back and look at our vocab and see what the term collinear actually means, it means points on the same line. So we want 3 points on the same line. So for example, what we could do, let me pick a different color here. We could say, okay, the line XY, if we were to add a point right here, and we could just call that point A, we could say that X, A, and Y are all collinear. They're on the same line. C, name 4 coplanar points. So again, if we look back at our vocab, coplanar means points in the same plane. Well, we're dealing with plane R right here, and it's usually with a like a italicized letter. In this case, it's capitalized. So if we were to look for 4 coplanar points, we need to find a point that's outside of the plane. So if we look over here, point W is not in plane R, but all the rest of the points are. So since that's the only one outside of it, we can say points X, Y, Z, and W are non-coplanar points because they do not all fit on the same plane. Number 2, draw the following. A, line N intersecting plane H at point E. So the first thing I like to do is create our plane. So in the first example, it was plane R, but we can go ahead and draw plane H. And I'm just going to call it H up here in the top right. And then we need to find line N intersecting plane H. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line here with a point. And then again, this is kind of like a pencil that goes through a piece of paper. So we're going to draw a dotted line and then a solid once it goes here. And that is line N. Okay, and then it's intersecting the plane at point E. So this point right here where it kind of hits that piece of paper is going to be point E. So some of these, we have to learn how to visualize these things, and this is going to help us as we move forward. B, a line that intersects two non-intersecting planes at a 90-degree angle. So what we want to think about is non-intersecting planes. Well, if we think back to algebra, two non-intersecting lines mean that they're parallel. So we're bringing back some verbiage from algebra. So if we were to try to draw that, I could draw this plane, and then I could draw this plane. And we just do our best to kind of show that they're stacked on top of each other, or you could go stacked left to right. And then what I need is a line that intersects these two planes at a 90-degree angle. So if I draw a line here with a point and then a dotted line, oops, sorry, that doesn't look dotted. And then same thing here. And then to show that they're at 90-degree angles, what we can do is do our little square. It's not perfect, right? But draw our little right angle symbol. So kind of think about two pieces of paper stacked on top of each other with a line going through there. Number 3, name a point that appears to be collinear with EF and which streets intersect at this point. So if we look at this picture over here on the right, it says name a point that appears to be collinear. So 2 points on the same line with EF. So we have line EF here. And so what we want to think about, well, what would be on the same line? If we just extend this point up, we see we have point D right here. So that's what I'm going to write right there, point D. And then which streets intersect at this point? So we want to think about at point D, what two streets intersect? And let me change my color here. If we see this street and this street intersect, and those two streets are East Travis Street and let's see, Navardo Street. Okay, so this is where they intersect, or this is where they cross. Number 4, explain why point A is not collinear with line BE. So point A is right here. And explain why it's not collinear with BE. And E, sorry, is right here. I kind of covered it up. So remember, collinear means 2 points on the same line. And if we look, A is kind of going north and south, and point E is going east and west. So I'm going to say it doesn't form a straight line. Okay, so this section here is our notes for 1.1. What we like to do at the end of each notes is write a quick summary and a question. So the summary, we like to say one sentence. So if you could summarize this up in one sentence, what kind of vocab would you use? Maybe you want to draw yourself a picture, all that good stuff. This is a key to learning right here is, are you able to summarize what we just learned? And then what we want to do for a question is any questions you might have. Maybe it pertains to vocab, maybe it pertains to drawing some of these pictures, or maybe you, like for number 2, the planes are messing you up. So for this one, you want to think of one or more questions. And then maybe you are having a hard time with example number 2. So you could just write, well, I don't really get example number 2. And maybe you go through this and you think, man, I know what I'm doing. This makes sense. So maybe you want to write yourself a quiz question. That way you can look back on it and see if you can answer it later. So this is our first video. Again, feel free to pause, go back, whatever you need to.